people need to learn how to do the inner work, because why do they need the adjustment in the first place? It's because they're not in alignment to their highest ideal. They're living in fear instead of their highest ideal. And that's the shift. Like, can you adjust your thoughts? Can you adjust your perception? That the whole thing that we talked about with the game of life, apply it to your
Yeah.
money, apply it to your relationships and what you're doing in life.
Welcome to Life is the Game, hosted by yours truly, Alexandra Nicole Stone. Get ready to uncover the secrets to mastering your destiny, becoming the main character in your life, and embracing a life filled with meaning and joy. Ready? Let's play. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life is the Game. I'm your host, Alexandra Nicole Stone, and today we have the lovely Dr. Lynn Carey joining us. Dr. Lynn Carey earned a doctorate in chiropractic and a bachelor's degree in nutrition from Life University. She owned a practice in Wilmington, Delaware for 18 years and has traveled to Brazil and India. Dr. Carey loves empowering others to create their desired life of health, wealth, and perfect self-expression. Today, she stays busy pursuing her entrepreneurial dreams and homeschooling her teenage son. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Lynn.
Thank you for having me, Alexandra. It's an honor to be here.
So something I'm really kind of excited or curious about when I talk to people is there ever a game or maybe a game-like concept you've experienced that has personally impacted your life?
So I will be honest, I am not much of a game player, but it's funny that you have that scenario, because now that I understand in my mind, for me, how life
Mhm.
works, I look at life as a game. And I really believe we're here to become master creators in this third dimensional human reality. So that's kind of how I.
And was there a tool or was there a book that maybe influenced this sort of perspective, or did you sort of come to it on your own?
Well, there was a lot of things coming together, and then that book kind of was the clincher for me. I thought, what a great description. It said, "A Life is a Game and How to Play It" by Florence Scovel Shinn. And so I
Okay.
really loved the concepts in that book.
Do you want to maybe share with the audience some of the concepts that really resonated with you?
Yeah, it's basically being very mindful moment to moment of what you're creating in your reality, what you're saying, the thoughts you're thinking, the perspective that you have, the beliefs that you have in every moment, and becoming mindful of creating what you want. You can maybe
Yes.
acknowledge what's happening, but is it what you want? Does it make you feel good? Does it make you happy? Or is it bringing you down? Because if it's bringing you down, then it's not in alignment with your source, your soul. So you want to feel the happiness, the inspiration, the passion. You want to feel good about it. So how can you reframe it? How can you restate what you want to happen in your life? And that, that's a practice, because I sure as heck was not raised thinking that way.
I love that. I love that because I think a lot of the times are maybe in a first person mode where we're just sort of living like an not an animal, but we're just like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. We sort of lose sight of maybe what is our mission, what is driving us, what makes us happy. So I think when we look at our life in a game like way, or the way the book is suggesting, it's kind of like taking ourselves out of our body a little bit and providing that third point perspective. So it's like, okay, what is it that I really want to do when I'm not living in this sort of survival next mode? So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's like stepping out of the busyness of life and getting caught up in all the to-do stuff, and really being intentional about what you want to experience, and really being mindful is like, the things that I'm making myself busy with, is it really gonna empower my life right now? Or are you just stuck in that survival mode? Even if
Yeah.
you are stuck in the survival mode now, maybe there's things that you can start implementing throughout your day where you can start being in that happy place, create a parallel path so that you can start really living the life that you want.
Yeah, I fully support that. I think it's just like every time I think about it, like every single time we have a decision to make, it's kind of like we have an opportunity to shape the way our lives go or to shape the way we play the game. So sometimes we're always making maybe safe decisions or making decisions that are not necessarily the ones that are true to us, but they're influenced by external bodies. So they're influenced by maybe our parents or by what society thinks or by what the bad little malicious voice in our head is saying. And so we make decisions based off of fear or doubt or because we want to fit in versus what we really, really want for ourselves. So I think a little micro tool maybe people can start using is like, okay, I have a decision to make. Maybe it's what you're eating for lunch. Maybe it's like, should I go for a hike today? And making all these, using sort of a game like mindset and all these little decisions, I think is something that can help empower people, right? And get out of that survival mode.
Definitely. And if you start with things that you don't consider serious, like what am I going to eat or where am I
Yeah.
going to go today? Things that you don't feel like, they're more light.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you start
Yeah.
there, then you can maybe transfer it over to things that matter more.
So I would love you to tell the audience a little bit about your journey. I'm really fascinated with sort of the side quests of life. And I'm a true believer that life is not a linear thing, right? We kind of we have highs and lows, or maybe we have a certain trajectory we think our life is going to go on, but then, something happens and that shifts and we end up going on, a little adventure or an unplanned sort of journey. So please share with the audience a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yes. I always feel like I questioned what I was being shown life was,
Hmm.
that go to school, get a job, work
Yeah.
hard. That whole scenario, I really thought, if this is all there is, I don't want it. Like, I don't want that. There has to be.
Yeah.
And then, and I believe some of those thoughts and the stress that I felt in my life, I had of really performing, like being the perfect student, working hard, all those things really pulled me in two directions. And so I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was a teenager. And I
Hmm.
just followed what the mainstream medical suggested. I ended up having Harrington rod surgery where they try to straighten your spine with Harrington rods. And I had no symptoms before except that you could see I had a crooked spine, but there
Yeah.
was no pain or sickness. Afterwards, the surgery itself, according to them, was a success, but I was sick and in pain. And for
Right.
years, on and off, and no one could help me. So I was still just doing what I was told. I was trying to find myself in college to declare a major, and someone had told me to look into chiropractic as a profession. And I didn't know what it was. I just was looking at different things. And I
Hmm.
read the pamphlet. It said the power that made the body heals the body. And I thought, why hasn't anyone said this to me in the last 5 years? Different doctors, different things. No one had an answer for me of why I kept getting sick. So I just went on that philosophy. It was like a God call because I didn't know what I was getting in. And it just changed my whole life. I mean, for the better,
Yeah.
so it started a whole new journey.
I love that. And so you said you were in high school when you started having this sort of problem. Was there no chiropractic care around, or were doctors never suggesting chiropractic care?
No, they never
So they,
did. And my mom thought they were quack. So my mom was very mainstream medical and
yeah.
I had different opinions, but they were all orthopedic guys. They all
Yeah.
saw, and it's interesting. I was in practice for 18 years and I have never seen one medical doctor understand the spine. Like I have people come in with all their medical papers of what these medical descriptions of these ailments that they have. And I'm like, how come they don't understand the spine? It's so simple, the way I learned it. And
Yeah.
they are saying stuff that doesn't even make sense to this day. And it blows my mind. Even for scoliosis, they're still doing that horrible surgery that I had. So barbaric in my mind. And that's still happening today. So it's very interesting how it's almost like these two realities are happening at the same time.
I think it's kind of a problem we experience a lot in America where we're trying to address the symptom, not the problem? So it's like, oh, okay, you're having back pain. Like, let's get a surgery. But why are you having back pain? It's because your spine is misaligned. Right. And I think, there needs to be more of a shift of mentality. I'm all about like homeopathic and natural before we go in because there's so much trauma affiliated with surgeries that it takes so much longer to recover than
Yeah,
maybe just doing the upfront loading, the natural work in the beginning, and then sort of kickstarting your well-being later on.
for sure.
But, there's kind of something like a silver lining in that story. And, I've talked to other health professionals or other professionals who've had a similar thing where like they were suffering from a specific ailment. And then that sort of kickstarted their journey onto this career path. So that's kind of like this beautiful thing where if that never happened to you, maybe you would have never explored chiropractic care And maybe you wouldn't be kind of creating that chain reaction of goodness and helping others and providing that insight. We're like, listen, I went through this myself, and this is something that I would never want my worst enemy to go through because of the amount of suffering that it causes in one's life, right?
Totally. And I say that, like, if I had to choose again, like, I couldn't even think about it because obviously I wouldn't choose that again. But how could I give up that experience for where I am now because of it? Right. There's always a gift, I think, through the hardest times in our lives. And that's what I always tell people, no matter what challenge you're going through, it's there for you to awaken to something bigger, to your empowerment, to freedom on the other side. So,
Yes, I'm a strong believer in that. And I think we could have a whole nother podcast on kind of how your lowest lows can empower you actually to your highest highs and keep you in touch with your life's work. And I
uh,
also compare that a lot as like sort of reminding yourself or figuring out your reason for playing, right? Like because you went through that experience, like now you know like the reason you have for playing the game, right? And educating and empowering people from that lens. And I think you've even mentioned that you're doing some like inspirational work and like coaching and mentoring. So I'm sure all that sort of led up to that. And yeah, sorry before I cut you off.
yeah, no, I just was, I always feel like chiropractic is such a metaphor for really alignment. So I adjust the spine to clear out the
Yeah.
interference, right? So that the brain body communication is better so that your life force can flow. So your body can heal itself. That's the only intention of chiropractic. If they're telling you they're curing anything or fixing any problems or treating a symptom, that's just the medical jargon creeping into our profession because of
Yeah.
insurance, because of the stigma, and because that's what people understand.
Yeah.
But people need to learn how to do the inner work because why do they need the adjustment in the first place? It's because they're not in alignment to their highest ideal. They're living in fear instead of their highest ideal. And that's the shift. Like, can you adjust your thoughts? Can you adjust your perception? That the whole thing that we talked about with the game of life, right? And not just, obviously within, but apply it to your health, apply it to your
Yeah.
money, apply it to your relationships and what you're doing in life.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. And I'm always thinking like that alignment is like your higher self. I like to tell people to think about their avatar or their main character version of themselves. Like, what is that ideal version of yourself that you have in your head that you feel is intangible? But it's not intangible. The thing is, like, the fact that that person is in your mind is because they exist within you. You are them already. But you have all these external forces causing that disruption that's putting you out of alignment. So you have to constantly recalibrate. You have to say that I'm important enough. Like, I
yeah,
deserve this. I'm important enough to leave my job. I'm important enough to invest in my health. I know chiropractic care sometimes not covered by insurance, or like I do a lot of acupuncture, right? Like those things, like I'm my number one investment. If this is not working, if my body is not working, if I'm not in good health, then I can't give myself to others, right? So I think a lot of people just have to think like, I am important enough. And then when you start having that mindset, that alignment starts to formate.
absolutely. That's so well said. And you know what? I love that you use the metaphor in gaming, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm not a big gamer. And that's something that I had to learn as an adult is how to play. I never really played even as a child. I took life skills
Yeah.
free. And I thought it was about overcoming and the struggle and working hard. And that's how you're worthy, right? It's from my religion, from my family, from all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I realized I had to allow myself to play and to not
Yes.
take life so seriously and to allow rest and to just be and not always worried about what am I achieving next? What do I have to get done? And
Yes.
so that's really been a huge part of my healing journey and becoming worthy for myself that
Yeah.
I'm okay to play.
Yes. I love that. And I think, honestly, even on the selfish level, like that's why I've started this podcast because I was also just like such a serious kid. My mom was always encouraging me to have fun and do things like that. And she's actually the reason that I have this like life, like looking at life as a game perspective. Cause I was like having a hard time finding work and taking everything so serious. And she's like, baby, like, what would you do if life was a game? And I was like, oh, okay. No, mom, you're wrong. Like life is serious. It can't be a game, right? But then when I started just kind of becoming a yes man and playing, like things started working out for me. And I forgot about that a while back. And I kind of became a workaholic and I was burning out and I was pouring myself into all these things that weren't even serving me. and I started getting chronically ill as well. And the thing is, doing the work and getting out of that took so much time. I think that was like the beginning of the pandemic that I started getting chronically ill. And it's been almost 4 or 5 years after that. And I feel like I'm finally back to my normal self. So looking at life as a game has been sort of just like this medicine, this remedy that I'm like, nothing is that serious. Like nothing is that important to make me sick, or building someone else's business and giving my energy is my most precious resource. And so I have to be really diligent about where I put that energy, because otherwise I'm going to get sick. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be lethargic, and it's not going to do anything good for me. So kind of looking at life as a game, I'm like, has been helping me navigate through that. And even now, as I'm saying it, I'm like, okay, it's that tool I've been using to kind of push myself further, and kind of as an accountability tool. Right now that I'm saying it, that I have to make sure that I'm living like each part of my life like that. Right. And practicing what I'm preaching.
It's a reorientation because we are not raised to think like that. I mean, that's such a gift that you had your mom say that to you,
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
not raised like that at all. And, just saying that life is a game. Can't you just feel the relief in that? Like when you start
Yes.
getting stuck in, this is so serious, I got to figure this out. Just helps you like take a breath and step back and reevaluate. And right there, you're going to find relief, probably an inspiration for the solution. It's just so healing.
Yeah. I think one of my like favorite authors and speakers, Tim Ferriss, he talks about something called fear setting. And it's like, what is the worst possible thing that can happen? And like, you have to think about it. Okay, for this decision, what's like the worst possible thing that can happen in 3 months and 6 months and 1 year? And then what's the cost of you not doing that? And how can you fix that? Or what can you do to sort of safeguard from it, even though you made that decision? Or how can you get back to a better place? And that funny thing is, like, if you go through that mental exercise, you realize that 9 times out of 10, it is just your mind that's making it that bad of a decision. But you're like, I can actually do this. And maybe you'll have a little bit of debt for some reason, or someone will not like you or something, but then you're living your most authentic life. Or maybe you're going to make your parents unhappy, get a little bit of disappointment. But the thing is, like, all of that will resolve itself, right? And the good news is, like, you're living your life for you. Everything else will get fixed. If you take some PTO, if you take some time off, the world's not going to burn. You'll come back and everything, you can go back to normal, if not better, right? Because you have that energy to give to it.
And that's the key to health, is living your
Mhm.
life. This is where I believe people create disease in their life. You can
Yes.
exercise all you want, you can have a clean diet, be really strict with your food. But if you're going to a job that you hate, if you're around people like you, your family that's not serving you and it's
Yeah.
draining your spirit, but you think you should, like eventually it's going to come out as disease somehow in your life. We're here to live our highest purpose, our highest calling, and we're not here to suffer. Like, I don't know what
Yes.
the suffering mentality is. Like, no pain, no gain. Like, no, we're not here to suffer. We're here to enjoy life, to be happy, to live the highest version of ourselves. This is what makes your life force flow in your body. That's why you're here. And that's the key to health. And that's what I really tried to help people connect the dots. Like, they would come in and say, oh, this symptom or pain, it just happened. And I'm like, well, are you stressed more than normal? No. And then they would talk about their day, and it was horrible. Listen, like I was stressed just listening to that. That had become their normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, something's going to give. And usually it's your health. If you're not
Yes.
pay attention to that, living at that level of high stress, I couldn't believe how many people did not connect those two things.
And I love that you say that, because I get chiropractic care. My mom was encouraging me for a long time to get it. And I was like, I don't need it. And it's so funny because once I started getting chiropractic care, your body, you realize that, oh my gosh, my body's used to being in pain all the time. And I'm just constantly ignoring that pain. But now after getting chiropractic care, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in pain. Like, I'm going to go get this fixed. Like, why should I live with like bending over and being like, ah, you know? And it's so funny because that's the same metaphor with people. I don't need it. It's fine. I'm okay. But you don't realize that you're suffering. Right.
Because the suffering becomes the normal. Like we
Yeah.
numb ourselves out to the bad. We think the bad feelings, the low vibrations are normal. But once you get experience of the freedom, the high energy, the higher vibes, the bliss state, then you realize, oh no, that's our normal state. How can we learn to live in that realm instead of creating this perpetual suffering?
I think this is actually like kind of a beautiful segue into sort of how did you get to the point where you had that mentality? Like, where was your aha moment? And I compare like looking at life as a game and realizing you can play life as a game as sort of having free will, realizing you have a free will and that you're in control of the decisions that you make in your life and the pain that you have and the good feelings that you have. So could you please sort of share how did you get to this perspective? How did you get to where you are today in this mentality?
I'm very much in chiropractic school. I was in a lot of pain for a lot of years. It wasn't like it was just I started getting adjusted and I was healed. It was a
Mhm,
process of also me understanding how the body works,
mhm,
losing my fear that I couldn't get better. And I had all those layers of scar tissue that just kind of had to start to release. So it was quite a process. So it was very much in the structural part of healing, I believe, like the physical adjustment and
mhm, mhm,
that mentality. Also kind of anti-medical. Like I was very anti the old way and doing it this way. But then when I opened my practice, I was like ignorance on fire, 23 years old, didn't know anything about money or business. I just wanted to practice on principle. I didn't want to take insurance. I didn't want to tell people they had to come to me so that I could get money. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want
yeah,
fear. I wanted to be a place of real wellness. People could
mhm,
choose to come. I wanted them to know they heal themselves. But I opened my practice and I swear spirit took over because I started feeling different when I got adjusted. I started feeling things with just a lighter touch, didn't even need like the cracking sound. It was like someone could just put their hand on my sacrum and I was starting to feel all kinds of things. Working on people, I was applying the lighter touch to people and I was like, we don't understand our bodies. Like this is
yeah,
beyond the human comprehension. And I started really just diving into like, I was reading a lot. I was reading books about money. I was reading books about relationships because I wanted to figure out life. Like I knew I had an alternative way to look at health, but I knew the rest of it was all intertwined.
yeah,
I felt that on an energetic level. I read autobiography of a yogi and I realized there were yogis who could go without food. They could walk through walls. They were, it was all energy.
yeah,
So I'm reading that I was doing Yogananda's lessons. I was going on mission trips where we were bringing chiropractic to Brazil, India, just adjusting people not getting paid. Just we were going for like a week and adjusting people in the community because they didn't have chiropractic. And the energy was shifting. Like I would get into such high vibration. And eventually it all kind of culminated into a point where I just became blissed out. And it lasted for like 18 months. And the only
amazing.
way I can say it, it's like falling in love with someone, but there was no other person. I realized I was just
Yes,
in love with myself, with life. Even my problems were laughable. And I was like, oh, this is what everybody's searching for. This is how we have miraculous healings because now your vibration's so high, your body heals. This
yeah,
is how you attract the right things into your life. Like this is why everybody is drinking or taking drugs or whatever because it's that bliss. They fall in love. You want
yeah,
the next relationship because you're looking for that high. But the
yeah,
high is naturally within ourselves. And we can
yes,
learn to live in that vibration. That's what it's all about. Then you can
yes,
live your life from that vibration. And you're not going to be addicted to things. You're not going to create out of alignment because now you already feel good. So
yeah,
now you can just bring in things to match that frequency instead of trying to fix the frequency. But then I had to understand how I got there and started understanding more about law of attraction and things like that and the energy of that. But, it took me a while to get verbiage to the state that I was in. Like I was looking for people. I didn't know how to describe what I was feeling. And I remember just finding like authors like the poets like Rumi and Hafiz and the saints who had the blissed out experiences like, oh, this is what they're talking about. Now I
mhm,
understand what they're talking about. So how do I keep myself in that place,
yes,
when you go off or you start engaging in life again and you start to take on that lower vibrational energy, how do you shift it? So then it was a
mhm,
process of learning. So it's been about, I guess, 20 years that I've been since I had the blissed out state. So I feel like now it's my normal state. So now if I'm off, I'm like, oh, how come I'm not feeling so high?
yeah,
And I'm pretty quick to get myself shifted around, which is cool because you still have challenges in life, right? And that's not to be ignored because I'm in a human body. I'm still clearing stuff. But when I'm having like those darker moments, they don't take me out completely like
Yes.
before because I know what's real now. And I know the gray state is real, what I call the gray state. I
Mhm.
know that's the real part. And this other stuff is the false reality. So there's the game right there, right? Like, let me get back to the gray state.
So that's the higher experience, right? The blissed out self. I totally understand that. And I just did ayahuasca for the first time back in November. And I went through that whole process of surrendering. Like my whole experience had been surrendering. The shaman was just trying to get me to relax. And there was this like vision I had of a agitated like demon or something. And it was like rah, rah, and snarling. And then he'd get it to relax, which was me. It took me a while to realize that that was me. And when I finally relaxed, it would realize that it's relaxed and it'd get back up again. But then he finally got me to sort of just surrender. And he kept saying, peace and love, like everything's okay. And when I finally surrendered, I felt that bliss out feeling. I felt it was what I call is like ecstasy, not from sex or from drugs, or it was just like that pure ecstasy. And I realized this is the true human condition. This is how we're really supposed to feel like. We're really just supposed to feel wonderful and good and great. The worst part is I was accountable for causing that suffering in my life. It's nobody else. Like I'm getting goosebumps right now. Nobody else is responsible for causing that suffering but you. And it's been crazy because that was over 6 months ago. And I've come back and I've kind of been going through my own sort of enlightenment. But I felt like now when I'm doing things that are out of alignment with who I really am, like that higher self, it just feels so wrong. Like I came back to my 9 to 5 and I'm like sitting at a desk and like doing this sort of mindless like work or doing work that's actually not creating a positive impact in the world is really not aligning with me. And I was feeling that sort of cloud. Like I'm definitely not in that blissed out state, but it's been just sort of like a framework to look at life. It's been sort of a North Star that, like, hey, that is possible. Like, we are not supposed to be in the suffering state. So now I've been sort of thrown onto this journey, that higher self in pursuit of that divine aligned experience where I'm like, this is what we're supposed to feel like. And life is a roller coaster. And like lately, I've been defining success as it's not necessarily how much money you make, and it's not necessarily the amount of influence or power you have. I think success is being authentic to yourself and being able to surf out the highs and lows of life and having integrity to your true self. Remembering to keep pushing forward no matter like how many highs and lows happen within your life.
I love that. That is so beautiful. That's so well said. And what
Yeah.
would you say, how do you have the courage to do the inner work or try the next business? I can't say. Now, once you
Yes.
understand the high vibration, you can't live in a state that doesn't support that anymore. As soon as
Yes.
you fall out of it, it's like, oh, this isn't good. It's too painful. It's too painful
Yes.
to live there. And, I'm grateful for that bliss state that I experienced because before that, the conviction wasn't as strong as it is now.
Mhm.
You can't give that feeling to someone else. They have to experience it themselves, I feel. You could talk about it,
Yes.
you could tell them, but you have to get to that place within yourself.
You have to be ready. I think it really takes having sort of drastic situations in your life to bring about those opportunities. Like for me, I went through like several traumatic experiences where I was attacked and then I had like my grandfather die and then I started getting chronically sick. And like those things happened to me within a 6 month period of time where I was like, what is happening to my life? It was like, what's going on? I was 25. I was like, I'm supposed to be in the prime of my life. And I was just destroyed. And I remember like weeping to myself, like, this is not what my life is supposed to be like. And I don't know. I kept looking at myself and I got this like sort of divine inspiration to look up like healing from the inside out. Nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. And I was just messed up. And I just looked this up and there was a book with that title. And I'm going to butcher his name, Noam Naim, but Healing from the Inside Out. And in this book, there was something that talked about sickness or illness is caused by emotions, right? And sort of like a reason people are sick for a long time is because they start like forming identities around that sickness. And sort of a way to heal from them is thinking about your higher purpose and your mission. And it had this sort of amazing effect on me because I think he created like a mantra in there, like, hey, I can no longer suffer from this affliction anymore because I have work to do. Like, I'm here on this planet for a reason. And this is impacting me, causing a positive impact in other people's lives. It's inhibiting from me from that. And like, I can't tolerate that anymore. Right? It was something like that. I'm not saying it word for word, but having that verse is like sort of ignited this fire in me, and it's put me on that mission. And it's been a long mission. I just stopped doing everything. I was living a really simple life for a long time. I was sleeping a lot. I was just doing one job. I wasn't going to the gym anymore. I was like, look, I'm just reducing all the stimulation in my life, which that I think was the scariest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life, is just like shutting everything down because I was a workaholic, right? And I had to recenter myself and like, what is important to me? Like, I have this mission. And that's what also made me realize I only have so much energy. I can't just take every opportunity. Everyone's going to want to zap my energy. So what can I give my energy to? And that's what kind of put me on this journey. And what I'm hoping is that helping other people look at life as a game can be a way to sort of a little cheat code, a shortcut where you don't have to go through trauma, like having a horrific back surgery or attacked or any of those things to kind of stop and question yourself, like, what am I doing with my life? Right. Instead, like having a fun perspective, be like, what am I doing with my life? And how can I make my life more fun and more aligned with myself? Right. And it doesn't have to be a crazy thing like creating a chain reaction of goodness and helping others' lives. It can be being a good parent or starting a community garden, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a big, hairy goal, audacious goal, right? I think that's what they call them. It can be something more on a micro level, but that it's important to you. So how do we teach people without going through those crazy traumatic moments and sort of plant the seed and trigger that thought process, that pursuit of higher self?
I think that's we're having more and more conversations like this. I feel that there's more people aware of this now. It wasn't just being mindful of your energy. You don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom. Look at the little things, like even how you just describe your body. Like, do you say that you have a cold, or is your body expressing itself? You don't have to label every symptom.
Yeah.
Are you ease or dis-ease? And why
Mhm.
are you dis-ease? Maybe your body's just resetting itself, or have you been in fearful negative thoughts or stressed out more, or just being mindful of how it's affecting you. And that's changing your energy. You don't have to do something crazy. You don't have to get some crazy labeled disease first before you wake up. I mean, if that's what happens, that's what happens. There's another way. And I think it's so important. It's just being mindful in the moment of how you're feeling.
I love that. And I think what I really like asking my guests is sort of, now that we've gone through this journey together, what does playing life as a game mean to you?
It's how much joy can I feel today? How much peace can I feel today? How much flow can I feel today? And that's my scoreboard. Like, am I flowing with life, or am I pushing against it? Or am I feeling high, or am I feeling like, oh, the pit in my stomach? Or am I worried? So it's like, I want my scoreboard to be really high on the charts with how much joy am I feeling? How much flow? How much am I allowing? How high was my vibe today? That's
Mhm.
usually what my meter is every day. So I'm kinda always in that thought process, like, I'm aware, I'm mindful of where I'm at moment to moment.
And how is it influencing what you're doing in your day-to-day life? Or how do you keep that in mind even on a low day? Like, how is it impacting your daily life?
Which I
Mhm.
have a low moment more than a low day, but really my thought process is, "Okay, let me just breathe. Let me just
Mhm.
do it. If I can't stop at the moment, let me just finish what I'm doing as soon as I can and rest." Like, step away from it, rest and reboot. Like, that's how I find relief, like, just rest. How do I chill out for a minute? Because then I can refocus, re-energize myself, and get a new perspective on how to go through whatever was challenging me.
Yes, hitting the reset button is a big deal. And I think sort of ties into a lot of things we were talking about today. But I think everyone is worthy of resting. They need to remember that you're allowed to take a break, take a pause. Nothing's going to happen. And it's probably the best way to recalibrate. And how is this like life, like game like mentality also impacting how you're working with your, clients? How do you sort of spread that joy or fun, or how do you motivate your clients that you work with to keep that sort of as part of the DNA of their lives, right? And grow that as part of their lives.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that people can do and that I tell people is to journal. Journal each day, like put pen to paper and write down what inspires you. Write down what you're grateful for, even if it's just little things. Write
Yes.
down what your dreams are, because a lot of people don't even want to acknowledge what their dreams are because they don't think it's possible or they couldn't do that or they're not ready to face that. Go wild, even if it doesn't have to happen. Just write down your wildest dreams. But the way to get into the belief of the vibration that it can happen is by looking at things to appreciate, looking at things that inspire you, just making lists of those things because you reorient yourself to the joys in life, to the blessings in life instead
Yes.
of the problem.
Yes. And I will also testify for journaling. I'm not so good about doing it daily anymore, but I also have to tell people like you don't have to journal daily, even if you do it once a week. Like that's a small win. Just keep doing it, and then you'll get more inspired to do it more often. Because then you're gonna get annoyed. Because when you do it once a week, you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, so much stuff has happened. It'd be so much easier if I just did it every day." And journaling, I think, is something really beautiful because when you're feeling down and you're looking at life and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't been accomplishing anything." When I go back and I look in my journals, and I've just started typing them in a Word doc because it's so much easier to stay organized that way, but you do what works best for you. When you start looking back and you realize like I'm making small progressions like day to day or even week to week. And if you didn't journal, you maybe not even noticing those things. And it could even be how you talk to yourself. Cause I remember I would like berate myself in the beginning of my journal entries. I'd be like, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And you can do this better. And then all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, I did this and I did that. And I'm like, I'm waking up late, but it's okay. Maybe I'm not, having the guru morning routine, but I'm doing things my own way and I'm making progress. So journaling's really good at like keeping track of that and celebrating and seeing your own evolution.
I think human nature is we want to have this massive change immediately. When that's when we get discouraged and quit or stop. But really, if you look at the small progressions every day, then you realize how much you're accomplishing. And those small progressions lead into the monumental change.
Yeah.
Missed
Yeah.
it because you're changing. But so the journaling helps you stay in tune to that.
Yeah, because when we're seeing the people we look up to, we only hear the stories of their successes, but we don't know the 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, 20 year, 25 year, right, journey it took them to get to that, right? And the failures that they have. So you have to be kind to yourself. I feel like it seems like so cliche to say that, but it's not. It's like the most important thing on earth is just being kind to yourself.
And when people would say you have to love yourself, that was such a cliche thing too. It's like, what do you mean? But it is. It's about being kind to yourself, taking time for yourself, realizing that you have to feel good first before you really can help anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any cheat codes? I like to call them cheat codes, but life hacks that you want to share with the audience that they can use in their lives to get a more positive outcome, have more fun, play life more like a game?
Well, I think the journaling is definitely one, being mindful in the moment. I'm a chiropractor, I have a degree in nutrition. I'm really aware of how people look at food. I think it's
Hmm.
so funny how people are so critical of what they eat and they become so neurotic of eating a certain way. And I think the biggest life hack you can do is, what do I really want to eat in this moment? Can you be mindful while you're eating? And are you enjoying your meal? Something like, can you just enjoy your meal? That'll do more for you, even if you consider it unhealthy, than if you're sitting there judging it, even judging eating healthy and you really don't want it. Your body's not going to, you know what I mean?
Okay, yes.
Like, and that can be a metaphor for a lot of things. Like, are you really enjoying what you're doing? Whether it's eating.
Hmm.
So it's like, where's the joy left?
Yes. I love that. And that can really translate into anything, not just food, but it's like guilty pleasures. Like I was just watching, 4 episodes of the Bridgertons on Netflix that just dropped. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it and I'm not going to punish myself. Because sometimes you do it and you're just like, oh God, I'm not being productive or I'm not doing those things. No, you tell yourself, I'm giving myself permission and I'm making a choice to do this right now and it's okay. And then whatever I have to get to, whatever negative thoughts or whatever needs to be addressed afterwards, I can address that afterwards, right? I'm going to eat this ice cream right now, but I know for the rest of the week I'm eating healthy or whatever. or I'm going to go for a longer walk tomorrow. But right now I'm choosing to eat this ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this. So this has been such a lovely talk and so healing for me too. I think the fun part about this topic of life is the game is that like there's no one specifically that I have in mind that I want to interview because I think everyone has an offer, a perspective that aligns with this because it's really about like playing the game of life on your terms. And so everybody can add value to that. And like, thank you so much, Dr. Lynn. You've added so much value. And I hope a lot of our listeners can take some of this like high level spiritual stuff. You can make it digestible to you, right? Just take the lessons of it and just use this as a lens to look through your life and grow and get better.
I think that's the most healing thing that we can do is we share our stories with each other and have these kind of conversations. And I think that's what makes the high vibe start to become normal for everybody. And I think that's what's so healing. So thank you for having me. This was amazing.
My pleasure. And could you tell our guests where they could, reach out to you or keep in contact? I know you maybe published a book or something. How can they learn more about you?
So I have a website. It's creatingmydesiredlife.com. You can email me a question or get on my mailing list. And I also have my book there. It's called My Journey to Grace.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And until next time.
Thank you.